feel like a LeMieur for 70 minutes. Like you're a part of this
Ooh,
family from when you sit down, when you leave the theater. There's a certain immersion that I wanted the audience to feel throughout it, and I think that's why I leaned towards even while I was shooting, I knew, like, I wasn't gonna use any music, or I didn't want it to be a talking heads documentary with voiceover
right.
or a lot of text on the screen. I didn't want that. So I wanted to just immerse you into the movie and just become a part of this family for 70 minutes.
Good day, filmmaker Sammy LeMieur. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for
I
having me.
oh, I loved the film. It is just such a fantastic slice of life. And my wife is from Fargo, so any chance I got to watch like a Minnesota film, I'm able to sell her on that. And normally it's, oh, these weird independent films. And she's like, a film from Minnesota? It's wow. And you actually, I found a fundraiser. You actually talked about that. You wrote, since moving to New York, I feel that small town Minnesota is a distinct environment that rarely sees the screen. So I can't wait to talk with you about the film. But before we do, this idea of Minnesota not being on a lot of films, I completely agree with you. Why do you think that is? And then do you feel like this film fills that void that you saw out there?
That's a good question. So that fundraiser was actually for a thesis film that I did at NYU, and I shot that in Minnesota. And I think it's maybe because Minnesota is just a lot of ordinary things. There's nothing really too extraordinary that happens there, and I think a lot of stories are sensational stories, if that makes
Right.
sense. And I guess for my thesis, a lot of people were shooting in New York naturally because I went to NYU, but a lot of
Of course.
East stories too. And I think I thought, oh, okay, so where I'm from, it's normal to me, it's home to me, but it's distinct. It's a distinct environment. Especially me going to New York was like Mars compared to where I was from. So I realized how different. So I shot my thesis in Minnesota, and we were the first NYU production to shoot in Minnesota, which had its own
Wow.
difficulties because it's just we were trailblazing in that. We were trailblazing a new path there, so a lot of extra paperwork, and the taxes are different there for renting equipment and all that. Yeah, so I don't know, to answer your question, like, for this documentary, I think it's really just filming ordinary life, and it's all matter of fact, but that's what I love about it, and I think just even hearing, like, the native tongue of Minnesota, I think is unique
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Love that, Sammy. So how did you get involved in filmmaking? So you grew up in Minnesota. Did you know that you wanted to go into filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not that dissimilar to most filmmakers. I've always been making movies as long as I can remember. My dad showed me Cool Hand Luke when I was, I
Oh,
think, maybe 11, and I don't know why, but that movie clicked with me. I was like, "This is a movie where it's a good movie overtly, but there's something else going on here." Just there's a lot of layers to that movie, so that's always stuck with me. And yeah, just making movies with my buddies. And Minnesota, or at least the town I'm from a town of 500 people. So, there's only one other person I knew that made movies, and that was my buddy Ethan, so we would just make a lot of dumb stuff. And yeah, just learning how to do it on your own like that, and you do everything, like, you mix the sound, you shoot it with the camera, you act in it, so it's like you're thrown in to learn all the different aspects of it, which is nice. Because even though now I have my own cameraman and sound mixer, knowing how to do each part of it, I think was beneficial.
and then you decided, "Hey, I'm going to one of the top film schools in the country." Did you apply to a bunch of different film schools, and then you decided NYU? Why NYU?
I initially went to Pratt Institute, so it was COVID.
Okay.
So I initially went to
Ugh.
Pratt, Brooklyn, which was brutal because I was home that whole year, and it wasn't
Zoom film school? Ugh.
film school, and it wasn't really film school. Like, Pratt Film School, the first year was a lot of just, like, art history classes and, like, painting, which I've never painted before, which was the art history was great.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I can't do this." So, I'm a Pratt alum, and I've never stepped foot on campus. So I after that first year, I was like, "I gotta transfer to NYU. I gotta get in." So I transferred, I got in, and yeah, it's been great. I You pay for film school to meet your
Right.
collaborators and to for the opportunity to use the equipment and make a movie. You don't so much, I don't think, pay to for the lessons in the classroom, I don't think,
Yeah.
because it's really something, especially nowadays, you can't just learn on YouTube.
A
So,
and you'd recommend it, Sammy, of looking back, you'd say, "Okay," if you were talking to the 18-year-old guy in Minnesota, you'd say, "If you can get into NYU, go."
for me, I would, yeah, because
Okay.
I if you it's if you like school, do it. If you don't, I don't think that you can't do it on your own either. I honestly do think it's
Right.
split down the middle. I like school because it gives me that structure, and especially moving to a new city and state entirely, like, I'm the only one of my whole family that's out of Minnesota, and I didn't know anyone in New York, so I needed that structure of throwing me into a community of filmmakers that I know I can collaborate with, and I still so I've been here for 5 years, and I still work with the same people on
Yeah.
the same DP, the same editor. So, it really was invaluable for me in meeting my people and actually otherwise I would be coming here blind, but like I said, I don't think it's necessarily it's really the experience and the people, the experience of actually making the movies and getting that opportunity.
Love that. So you made a few shorts, I think, When a Pig Gets Sick, which I looked for and I couldn't find. Looked what a fantastic name. So what did that experience teach you about short films?
Oh, that's funny that I made that in high school, so it's funny you dug that up. I guess 'cause I made a couple short films since then, but I guess with short films, I think there's something about short films that really teach you structure. I have always tried to keep my short films strict and I guess without dialogue, I think that's proper to to the short form, and I think it really has taught me more so, I guess, more recent ones, but I'm gonna pick it's like 2, like, short films, I think, teach you how to tell you gotta tell a full story in 10 minutes, right? So I think it's really taught me how to tell a story efficiently and how each scene I guess one of my most recent short films, it's called Winner Take Nothing, but for some reason, that one in particular is just a short film, you have 10 minutes, how to tell it as efficiently as you can in the least amount of scenes that you can. I just think with a feature, you can get stuck kinda using too many miscellaneous things just because you might think they're cool or add it to it in not really a specific way, and I think that's why I think short films if I have any advice to a young filmmaker, like, before you make a feature,
Yeah.
make good short films,
Yeah.
because I think you really do learn how to tell a story because 'cause you're more restricted, you have more of a box.
There are people out there saying for purely monetization purposes, make the feature no matter what, simply because you're able to get your money back. But it's like maybe mortgaging your future because you probably won't even know what you're doing. And if it's bad, then, you've made a feature. Great. It's a bad feature. So what was the point of that?
Yeah. I suppose it's if you wanna go make a feature, that's great, but for me, it was like, I y I wouldn't wanna waste, I guess, that big of a budget and that much time on something where I didn't think I had the experience to do it, or the money either. I think short films, you can prove to someone, "Hey, I've made this. Can you help me finance a bigger feature?"
So you made your thesis film, which I read that fundraising note, and I think it was going back to Minnesota, but it was different than the Lemire. So walk me through like you made your thesis film, and then when did you decide to make a documentary?
So, it's actually I've been filming my documentary for since COVID about, so even before my
Okay.
thesis. So I shot that for about 4 years, just whenever I would go home, it gave me something to do, and
Oh,
shot that from about, I think, 2021 to 2024, and then most of 2025, I was editing it. I think
okay.
I accumulated about 500, 600 hours of footage. Yeah, and then my thesis is fiction, so, I
Okay.
always like
Right.
different too, and I was doing those kind of simultaneously for about a year. So they're both different, and it just helps me see them individually too.
And so Lemire's has its feature premiere February 20th. Is it the first time you've seen it in a theater with a crowd? Or did NYU have a screening for it? And what do you want those people to feel, when they watch the film?
I've shown it to my family and my friends and the people involved, but it's my first
Okay.
time showing it to, yeah, just a crowd, especially people that don't know me or know the movie.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's gonna be a pretty unique experience because I've shown it to people throughout editing, just like people that didn't know me very well or the family, because I wanted it to be not just, like, someone that like, the family member could enjoy, but, like, a movie that everyone can enjoy. Because I really do think it's pretty universal, just the themes there, I
100%.
think everyone can relate to it. But, yeah, it's gonna be my first time being in a theater of a lot of people that don't know me or the people in the movie that are seeing it. Yeah, I don't know if that answered what was your question with that?
So, is it what do you want people to feel? Like, when the audience, do you want them just to understand, like, is this a feeling of a regular family type of thing coming out of the screening?
I guess what I want people to feel is just feel like a Lemire for 70 minutes, like you're a part of this
Ooh,
family from when you sit down, when you leave the theater. There's a certain immersion that I wanted the audience to feel throughout it, and I think that's why I leaned towards even while I was shooting, I knew, like, I wasn't gonna use any music, or I didn't want it to be a talking heads documentary with
right.
voiceover or a lot of text on the screen. I didn't want that, so I wanted to just immerse you into the movie and just become a part of this family for 70 minutes, and I felt like interfering with that as the filmmaker would take away from that kind of effect, and I think it really has worked with people. I think people really do sit down and forget they're watching a movie, and they really feel like they're sitting at the table with grandma or with the brothers or getting, like, behind the scenes access to this funeral home. I think people have found that really interesting.
1,000%. It definitely feels like what a Minnesota family feels like. You got boats at which I, only can assume the 4th of July, because that's where I spend my 4th of July in Minnesota. Was There's some boats at 4th of July, and so, Sammy, I had a really sinking feeling, about 20 minutes in when I was watching how it was gonna end. I was just like, I'm not ready for this." And I don't wanna spoil the
Mhm.
film, but, like, how did you decide, like, you started filming just because you wanted to document, and then the end point, it just felt a natural type ending for the film?
Yeah, I knew from the start that it was always gonna end like that, and I
Okay.
figured the audience would know that too, and that was kinda the challenge, was like,
Right.
how do you create a progression and create a rising conflict throughout this story that you know where it's gonna go? So that was our biggest challenge in editing it. I edited it with a buddy I met at NYU, Colin, who's also producing it, and that was our biggest challenge, was like, we know where it's gonna go. It's pretty obvious from the start with grandma. But yeah, how do you still create that it how do you still make it interesting and people wondering where's it gonna go? And I think, like, Todd Phillips said something. Todd Phillips, he started out in documentaries, and he said something like, "You don't just shoot a bunch of shit about a project and then figure it out later. You
Right.
actually write it." And so I'd written this documentary, so I that's how I'd always planned on ending it, and inevitably things did change, and we moved things around, but for the most part, what's in there was written to be in there in a way.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was really
I
everything leads to that moment, how it all funnels there.
And I think it completely worked. It's horrible. Like I said, it gave me that pit in the stomach about 20 minutes in, where I'm like, "Oh man, this guy's gonna do this to me." And it's a split that it's coming and it's gonna be painful, but then that's part of the journey. Like, you're more tapped into the family then, because you're okay, what is gonna lead me to this moment? And I think you guys did a great job of making that work that way. So, what was the family's reaction? And I'll ask you generally, like, if somebody was interested in doing something like this, was this something you, like, set boundaries of, okay, I'm gonna share this, I'm not gonna share this? Or was it something at the end of it, you just, hey, here's my final edit. Is this okay? Is this not okay?
That's a good question. I think right away, they're all kind of blue collar, small town folks, so right away shooting it, they weren't the most open to it, but I was shooting it for so long, and I think once you just if you're filming a scene, once you sit back and shut up and don't interfere with them and what they're doing in the scene, they really do
Yeah.
forget about it after a certain point. Just keeping a distance and not just interfering, just letting it happen. You want them to wear a microphone, put it on early, and then just be quiet and sit back and just observe with the camera, and they really do forget about you. So they did get really comfortable throughout the couple years of filming it. And like I said, they just didn't even really know. Some people say it doesn't even seem like they knew you were there. And it's because for the most part, they really didn't. They just forgot I was there. Were able to just act like themselves. And I really think that they didn't know it was going to be what it was. I think it was a lot different than what they thought it was going to be. But I think they might have thought it was gonna be a little bit maybe more flowery, but I think that they loved it better than I could have imagined, and I think there's a certain honesty to it
Oh,
where I showed it to them all in this little theater, just the brothers and a couple select family members, and they just wept about it, and like I said, I think it was really different than what they thought it was gonna be, but I think they were pleasantly surprised, and that was gratifying for me because I just wanted to as much as I want this to be a movie for everyone else, I wanted them to
Right.
be happy with it.
'Cause that's a huge challenge, right? It's not only a documentary, you can make a documentary about baseball, and it's okay. You don't have to see baseball every Christmas. That had to be, like, one of the big things is, like, you can't make a film about your family that your family is not gonna like, so that's,
Well,
like, the challenge, and is that sort of what you took away from that experience? What are you bringing from that experience to your next film?
so my next film, I'm making a documentary on it's another documentary. So for me, they're both
Interesting.
kind of yeah, documentary and fiction, it's the same to me. The movie's a movies. Making another documentary in New York here on a restaurant, Peter Luger. It's a big institution here,
Steakhouse. Yeah,
steak, yep, and similar to that, I think bouncing off of the LeMieuR's documentary is really a good pivot 'cause it's something different, but it's also really gonna help me on this, I think, because it's just very similar. I don't wanna do talking heads or talk about so much,
I know.
telling the audience about the history of this place or whatever, but I want to just be a little, like, cockroach on the wall, just seeing the life unfold naturally, and it's there's something that I'm attracted to about the different cultures of different regions, and I think that's why I'm from Minnesota, but that was my angle there, and this is very Brooklyn. So just the way people talk and the different mannerisms are very much of the area, which I love. So it's gonna be similar in that regard, and they really are a family there too. So it's similar but different, so I'm excited to work on that, but definitely a lot of it'd be very different if I didn't just come off of this project for sure.
Are you surprised that you're finding your work to head down the documentary path? Is that something you would have predicted when you started film school?
Now when I started film school, I always thought I was gonna be like a fiction guy, like
Right.
more narrative approach, but I think, like I said, they're the same to me. They blend together fiction and
1,000.
the day, documentaries are fictionalized and manipulated quite a bit, and I think with my documentaries too, they do naturally probably have more of a narrative approach to it. At least I like to think
Right.
it's more of a story unfolding, and the audience is hopefully more involved in it than a traditional documentary. But yeah, it is surprising for sure. I never thought my first feature would be a documentary, but it's in my head, they're all a movie's a movie.
When you see other documentaries and they pursue different strategies to get away from the talking heads, like hybrid documentaries or just like reenactments that are making it into a narrative, what are your
Mhm,
thoughts on those kind of films? Like you do, at least on the Lemire's, your style is like, forget that I'm here. I'm just going
mhm.
to be a camera. Is that sort of something that you are going to continue to pursue, or do you see yourself branching out into some sort of hybrid documentary sometime down the line?
I'm not sure. I think I love Thin Blue Line. I love I it's not so much I only like documentaries that attack it like this. It's just that's how I gravitate towards myself doing it for whatever. As far as what I would do in the future, I guess it also depends on the story too. It's not
Story.
so much like imposing a certain form on a story. It's just like whenever there's a story that interests me and I want to film it, it's like like the way I envision it in my head is the way I'm going to shoot it. And that's just what's happened these last two projects and my upcoming projects. But there's some talking head documentaries that are fantastic. So it really is just about what story you're telling and if it fits with that.
Love that answer, Sammy. Distribution got into one of the top festivals. What are your thoughts on when people can see the film, like, on a wider level? And if you thought just do you wanna have it screened at different theaters? What are your thoughts on distribution?
Like distribution just in general as like a possibility or
Yeah, just more general commentary about the state of obviously, you don't maybe know now the
yeah.
distribution of the film, but just generally how you view distribution for a documentary. And if you did know anything about when people would be able to see the film, I imagine you don't, considering it's on its festival run. Generally speaking, your ideas on distribution for docs.
Yeah, I want it to be this is probably a simpleton answer, but I want it right now we have no distribution, and that's what our
Okay.
goal with Slamdance to market it and hopefully find a distributor and the right distributor for it, but it's like hopefully a movie where you can not have any affiliation with the project or know the people or the people in it or have me have to send it to you. or you don't have to go
Right.
to some third party app to get it, but more so just someone can be sitting on their couch and just I've done a million times where you just flick through a streaming service and you're like, "Oh, this looks interesting," and you watch it. And I just because I really do think as much as it is a movie for my family, I really do want it really is a movie for everyone, and that's how I made it. Like I said, when I was testing it, I really wanted to make sure people that didn't know me or the family, it made sense to them. So I just yeah, whether that finds whether it's Canopy or which is more of a student-based streaming platform or a MOOC or, whatever, just something that someone can find easily without having to jump a bunch of
Go through 20 apps, yeah.
exactly, yeah.
I love that, Sammy. So, Indie Film Podcast, love supporting other people's projects. I'm sure that was a big part of your time at NYU of helping out other your classmates on their own projects. And it also sounds like you watch a lot of films as well. So, is there a film out there or filmmaker that you wish more people knew about?
Like, more independent? I guess if we're on the
It
independent
could be
train, we can
really
talk
it could be really anybody, any film out there that you really love that, you just feel and sometimes people say, like, something that's even popular, but they just feel it hasn't really that it needs more love. Somebody who needs more love.
I think Ross McElwee, he's an independent documentarian, and, his documentaries are very much like the camera is his eyes and his voiceover is like the thoughts in his brain, and he was a big inspiration actually for just on the edit, mainly in post-production for the Lemires. We watched him quite a bit of his stuff, me and Colin, as we were editing it, and I think some people I talk to know about him, but a lot of people I talk to don't know about him, and he's made some pretty incredible stuff. Ross McElwee, he's made some good stuff, and he's coming out with a new one. He hasn't made a movie in a long time, and he's coming out with one this year, so I'm excited to me and Colin are pumped to watch that real soon.
Sammy LeMieur, this has been so fantastic chatting with you about the Lemires, which I absolutely loved. It was just like one of the films that blew my wife and I away. We were talking with our
Thank
family already about it, and it just felt for people who know Minnesota, like it felt like Minnesota. Like, it was just like everything you imagine Minnesota to be is in this film, true to life, just and you do it in a way that I think is extremely relatable to a wide variety of different you don't need to know anything about Minnesota to appreciate the film. You just have to be a part of a family, and you really feel like you're a part of the Lemires when you're going through that journey. I really love the film. I'm excited to hear how the premiere goes. I'm sure it'll just be people blown away by it, and I appreciate your time talking with me about it on the podcast.
Thank you, man, I appreciate it. It was fun.